session that is kind of one of the sessions that we run at Sandler. And as it's the start of the new quarter, I thought we'd kick off with a little bit of a planning session. So 30-second capsule summary first. For those of you that don't know, I'm Ollie. I work for a company called Sandler. We're a global management consultancy. We've got about 2,500 people around the world, and we work with sales leaders, we work with managers, and we work with customer services team. My background is I was selling double glazing when I was 16 to pay my way through music college. I then did a philosophy degree, decided not to become a librarian, so became a salesperson instead. And I've been kind of involved in sales leadership and consulting ever since. So I thought for this morning's session, I'd take you through this little thing that we run, which I've entitled, "An Idiot with a Plan Beats a Genius Without One." Anyone know, by the way, where that quote comes from? Massive prize if you do. That's one of my favorite thinkers, Warren Buffett, right? Warren Buffett, chair of Berkshire Hathaway, one of the most successful investors of all time. And I like this quote, right? An idiot with a plan beats a genius without one, because I think there are so many examples of very bright people who didn't fulfill their potential. And then there are also great examples of perhaps people who maybe they weren't idiots, but they hadn't had the best start in life, who followed a process and achieved their goals. And one example of this, I think, in terms of the impact of what we at Sandler call marginal gains or marginal improvement from the Team Sky cycling team, is Novak, right? Novak Djokovic. I found this stat, or this stat, fascinating. So 04 to 05, Novak's outside the top 100 in the world. He's, in relative terms, earning a pittance. He's winning 49% of his matches, but the important bit here are the points that he's winning, right? He's winning 49% of his points. 06 to 010 focuses, and we've sort of listened to many interviews from Novak, focuses on just winning more points. As a percentage, he's winning about 7.5 to 8% more points, but the gains that he's getting from that just by winning more points are enormous as you filter back through the chart. So he's winning nearly 80% of his matches. His prize money has gone from under $250,000 to $5 million. He's now in the top 3 in the world. And then again, another marginal improvement in points won through the 11 to 16 years, up from 52 to 55%. Now he's winning 90% of his matches based on that marginal improvement in points won. Prize money on average for the year, that's exclusive of sponsorships, purely prize money, 40 million quid. And he dominates this period where he's number 1 in the world. So one of the things we like our clients to think about is really considering where they can make marginal gains in their own personal and professional lives. And we talk a lot about inputs and outputs, right? And if you're a triathlete, you'll probably know this expression. By the way, there is going to be a proud brother moment in this presentation, for which I apologize. But triathletes talk about garbage in, garbage out, right? Managing the inputs, the things that we're doing consistently day in, day out, in order to affect the outputs. And one of my favorite books the last couple of years, James Clear's Atomic Habits. If you're interested in behavior change, highly recommend it. Illustrates this really nicely, right? This is a chart that maps the compound effect of either improving or declining by 1% each day. And we see this both in professional and personal life everywhere. A good example for me personally is when I was 18, I was a very good guitarist. I was kind of touted as maybe, being a career musician. I basically didn't improve. I basically messed around for the next 10 years. And as a result, I probably, flatlined and just didn't improve much over time. Versus if I'd had a structured plan in place, like the Novaks of this world, elite athletes and elite performers in any field, if I'd have had a program in place to provide me with consistent improvement over time, regardless of what percentage and over what time period, maybe things would have been slightly different. So I invite you, as we go through this for the next 10 minutes, if you feel it's worth it, just thinking about, firstly, your own personal and professional habits. And secondly, the things that you want to see improvement in and how you might seek to achieve that improvement. So in Sandler, we think success is made up of 3 things: behavior, attitude, and technique, right? Behavior, the stuff that you're doing consistently; attitude, the energy, the outlook, the perspective you have on doing that stuff; and technique, how good your chops are, right? Behavior, attitude, and technique, the stuff you do, your mindset, and your chops. And today I want to spend just the 10 minutes on this talk talking about the behavior element of the success triangle. So we break our behavior down into 3 key areas, right? Goals, plan, and action. So quite a nice quote, which is discipline without goals is punishment, and goals without discipline is dreaming, right? And I think that's true. We lock people up, make them do meaningless tasks as a punishment. And equally, we all know those dreamers down the pub who are like, this time next year, Rodney will be millionaires, right? So goals without discipline is dreaming, and discipline without goals is punishment. So a couple of questions, if you're into this kind of stuff and you're looking for change, to think about is, have you written down and codified your long-term, short-term, and daily goals, right? Or do you kind of just, as I used to, float through the day doing whatever crops up? Plan. Have you got a plan of action to execute against those goals, whatever they are, whether they're personal or professional? And finally, action. How often do you get to the end of the day, the week, the month, and think, I didn't quite get to do everything I wanted to, but never mind, I'll get round to it next month. So we think there are 4 elements to success in Sandler, and Sandler, one of the things I like about Sandler, having been around for 60 years, is it's grounded in psychology. So this is not kind of hocus pocus. This is very well road-worn psychology. Number 1 is goals, right? And I think as we're at Q1, I think it makes sense to start defining what success looks like for the next quarter, right? What do you want to achieve for the next quarter? Number 2, indicators. Tracking your progress throughout to make sure you're on the path. Weekly behaviors, doing what you need to do consistently. One of my favorite quotes from Arnie is, you just need to do the reps, right? Are you doing what you need to do consistently? And finally, 4, weekly accountability, making sure it happens. So I'm going to briefly talk you through these 4 elements, if that's okay, and hopefully stimulate a little bit of thought for your own planning as well. So I did say there was going to be a proud brother moment. This is my brother Tom. He's 3 years younger than me, much better looking than me, and far fitter than me. And 4 years ago, Tom was a chain smoking, hard drinking, hard working lad. And anyway, for some reason, he decided to get into triathlon. And he's now semi-pro, by which he earns part of his income as a triathlete. And he'll be going to Kona if he stays on track with his leading and lagging indicators, the world champs. He'll be going to Kona within the next couple of years. And Tom is a paradigm example of this stuff, going to, implementing the things we're talking about and it working out. So firstly, goals, right? Let's have a look at number 1. And we think at Sandler, when it comes to goals, it generally makes sense to have each quarter 3 professional and 2 personal goal areas. Any more than that, and you're just going to get overwhelmed. Any fewer than that, and really you're probably not doing as much as you could be. We also think they should be ambitious, but not complicated. Overcomplicated goals, from a personal perspective, going on crazy diet plans or exercise regimes where there's too much to think about, generally sets you up for failure. So your goals, generally, psychology tells us, should be ambitious, but not complicated. Briefly, they're mine from the last quarter. So I break mine down typically into sales, time management, training, and personal. I'm dreadful at time management, so that was a big goal for me last quarter. So once you've defined your goals, and again, I'll invite you to do this out of the session. If you'd like a template for this, I can send you a template that we at Sandler have got, so you can fill this in if it would be useful. Once you've got your goals, what are your indicators? So whether you're a world-class athlete or a salesperson, Generally, top performers break their indicators down into two categories. First one is your leading indicators. Right? Your leading indicators are the actions you'll take, the things you can control. And whether they make you money or not, they're the things that are going to move you towards achieving your goal. So money-making behaviors for triathletes are time on the bike, time on the road, time in the water, quality sleep, the amount of meals that they're, high quality meals they're eating, the amount of alcohol they're not drinking. Right, those are their money-making behaviors, the things that they're tracking that they can control. You then have your lagging indicators, right? The outcomes from those actions, the results from those actions. So if you're a triathlete, largely, many triathletes measure FTP, right? So that's your threshold, your threshold power. So as a result of training hard, eating right, sleeping well, your threshold power improves. So one thing to think about for your own goals, if you've defined your goals, I think whether professionally or personally, what are your money-making behaviors for this quarter? I ran this almost this exact session with 80 salespeople from who work for a $1 billion organization called CrowdStrike yesterday, and we had a similar conversation, right? You know, what are your top money-making behaviors for this quarter? So if it's about selling for you, maybe that's about following up existing leads. Maybe it's about re-engaging with lapsed clients. Maybe it's about doing some outreach to on-profile prospects. Maybe it's about spending some time on social networking. I'm a Luddite, that doesn't tend to work for me. Or maybe it's about asking for intros to strategic partners. So again, thinking about when you've got your goals, what are your money-making behaviors? What are your leading indicators? So we've got goals, right? Things you want to achieve. We've got the indicators, the things you'll measure progress against. Thirdly, doing the reps, right? Staying on the path to victory by defining your weekly behaviors, something that we call a cookbook for success. So whether you're a professional athlete, a professional musician, or a professional business person, you know that consistency is key, right? In terms of moving towards your goals, achieving those marginal gains, improving by 1% every day, you'll know that consistency is key. So what are the weekly behaviors that you should be doing and executing consistently to drive you towards your goals? So this is what we call a cookbook, a weekly cookbook. This happens to be a broad approximation of part of my cookbook for each week. And again, I can send you this if it would be useful as a template, but it's about just defining the things you need to do on a consistent basis. So for me, my role is I prospect, I sell, I consult, and I train. About 50% of my time is prospecting and selling. So I know I need to make 100 new dials to contacts. I need to have about 10 business conversations per week. I need to book off those calls about 2 discovery meetings. I need to ask about 10 clients for referrals. I want to get some intros, a couple of intros to associations or chambers. I want to book a speaking opportunity, something like this, once a week. And we also run our briefings. I need to get 10 briefings. Now those won't be relevant to you. Some of them may be, but again, it's about breaking the big goal down into those behaviors that you can execute consistently. What are they? What's the volume that you should be doing? And then tracking how much you're doing. Because what we know is if you don't track your behavior, basically not much happens, right? If you don't track behavior, not much happens. And then finally, weekly accountability. So here's Arnie. There are no shortcuts, right? Everything is reps, reps, reps. So when it comes to your weekly accountability, we know, or psychology tells us that humans are conditioned to seek pleasure and avoid pain, right? As humans, we're conditioned to seek pleasure and avoid pain. And the best accountability can be structured around both. So I currently have a little accountability group that if I don't do my weekly behaviors week in, week out, the 1 week I miss, I've got to pay 1,500 quid to the Trump Foundation. And I've got to cancel my guitar lessons, my guitar tutoring for the remainder of the year. So that's my forfeit. fairly sizable. And then my reward, if I complete my behaviors each quarter, my reward for this quarter is to buy myself a new guitar. It's a 1962 Gibson ES 330, which is something I've wanted for a while and will need me to hit my financial goals to afford it. So thinking about your own accountability, if you're committed to your goals, you've got a plan that you believe in, you've got the discipline to execute the behavior consistently that you need to, ask yourself a couple of questions. Number one, what could you put on the line as a forfeit? Right? What could you put on the line with a forfeit, as a forfeit? Number two, how could you reward yourself once you've smashed your goals? And I think number three, who's going to hold you accountable? Are you going to share this with a partner, one of your children, your best mate? One of my colleagues in Sandler has promised his little girl that they will go to Disneyland if he completes all of his weekly behaviors for the next quarter. So every day he wakes up, his little girl's bugging daddy about whether or not he's done his behaviors, right? Great accountability partner. So those are the four elements of success, right? Have you got goals that motivate you? Have you got leading and lagging indicators to help you know how well you're progressing towards those goals, whether that's running a marathon, running a business, losing weight, whatever it is? Have you got a behavior cookbook that allows you to monitor and consistently execute the things you need to do? And are you rewarding yourself and holding yourself accountable by sharing those objectives with somebody else? So just a little reminder, the reason all this stuff matters is that we don't have to be brilliant. We just have to be consistent, right? Whatever our goals are, personal or professional, we don't have to be a genius, because an idiot with a plan beats a genius without one. And a final quote, a really cheerful one from Bob Dylan, but one I think really resonates with me and gave me a bit of fire up my backside, which is, you're either busy dying or you're busy being born, right? And I think that applies to us in business, right? We're either in decline because we're not doing the things we need to achieve our goals, or we're in a growth stage because we're consistently doing the things that we should be in order to achieve the things that we want. So guys, let me just put that initial slide up so you've got that in case you want it. Goals, defining your success, indicators, tracking progress, weekly behaviors, doing what you need to do consistently, and weekly accountability, making sure it happens. And of course, in this group, we've got accountability if we want it, right? There's no reason we couldn't pair up and hold one another accountable. So that's it. I hope that was useful. 15 minutes of a little bit of goal setting and planning. Happy to take any questions if there are any.